Now, many followers of the sport have labeled Billy Joe Saunders a quitter for retiring on his stool after 8 completed rounds against unified 168-pound champion Saul Canelo Alvarez on May 8, 2021. Personally, I don't mind if a fighter conserves his health. It's just that he has to bear the consequences for what the boxing community will throw back at you. In the case of Billy Joe Saunders, it's all of his pre-fight talk that has come back to haunt him, including one of Saunders' former foes that could either be left ignored or maybe turned into an interesting rematch. Hey Ringsiders, what is going on? I'm your host, Boxing's Objective Observer, and welcome back to Ringside Stories, or if you're new, we cover boxing and combat sports through mini documentaries and backstories. So if you enjoy that type of content, feel free to subscribe, thumbs up, and hit that notification bell for the latest. Thanks for your support. Chris Eubank Jr. has called out his longtime domestic rival Billy Joe Saunders for quitting against Saul Canelo Alvarez.
There is no recovery. The guy is perfectly fine. He quit. He got a black eye and he didn't want it anymore with Canelo. There was no smashed orbital bone. There was no broken eye socket. He swallowed it. He gave up. And that's why he's been MIA for the last however many months, because of the shame of what he did.
There are those who said, well, Billy Joe Saunders, he quit. He quit. I mean, what do you say to them?
Listen, you're always going to have your people who's going to come in and have their 2 pence worth, but you know, the people, my team who's in that corner, know the conversation. I was going out for the 9th round, orthodox. And when people say about he quit, you've got to look at the sort of situation that my team are there to do a job. You know, they're there to look out my best interest because I'm there to go on all night. You know, when we step in that ring, that's our lives. And I'm willing to put that on the line. But that was the corner man's decision, you know, and it is what it is. I can't argue with that.
Now, with a broken eye socket against the pound for pound number 1, as Billy Joe's friend, and also as a fellow coach, that wasn't going to happen. In my opinion, the fighter shouldn't be put in a position like that with an injury like that. The reason I whispered in the fighter's ear because the fighter needed telling the fight was going to be pulled. So his body language was to say, no, don't pull the fight. Because any fighter's doesn't want to be pulled out of the fight.
Some people actually, actually believe that he went through these injuries that he claims. You know, we're not robots. We're not sheep. If you actually put 2 and 2 together, no, he quit.
And I agree with Chris. I mean, it's been months and we have yet to see any evidence of Billy Joe's claims that led to his team pulling him out of the fight against Canelo. But if a fighter claims to have been legitimately hindered, fans and pundits are in their right to question the validity. And especially these days with the C-19 virus, fighters will be able to pull out of fights, events can be canceled easier, which will and have proven to leave boxing fans frustrated and disappointed. For example, former Olympic gold medalist and multi-weight world champion Oscar De La Hoya was slated to make his return to the ring against former UFC light heavyweight title holder Vitor Belfort, albeit for an exhibition match.
You know, so in boxing, you're just as old as how you feel, you know? Yeah, I went through hell and back, treating my body wrong, but these last 6 months, man, I feel amazing. I just refocused myself, rededicated myself, and I'm actually doing this one for me, man.
Even though he felt fantastic, even though he was fully vaccinated, the Golden Boy still contracted the C-19 virus.
Me siento mal. Tengo COVID. Mi pecho no puedo respirar bien.
Now, there are some maybe cynics out there that might say Oscar was faking this, putting on a Grammy Award-winning performance. Regardless whether this is contrived or not, Oscar De La Hoya at least showed some receipts, something that Billy Joe Saunders hasn't shown to this day.
If that was the truth, then there would have been doctor's reports. There would have been pictures. The guy was driving around in his car a week later. If you've broken your eye, That doesn't happen. As simple as that.
Now, a Saunders Eubank Jr. rematch at this point in both of their careers is actually an interesting fight in my opinion. Eubank lost first time around by split decision, although I felt Billy Joe won by a few rounds simply because Chris came on way too late, which has been a pattern of his career so far. He has had some decent wins, but just froze when the stakes got higher, including first time around against Billy Joe Saunders, which in a way explains why Chris Eubank Jr. at this point in his career has yet to become a full-fledged world champion. Sure, he has some talents, he's got great attributes, athleticism, but for some reason hasn't been able to put it all together so far. On the opposite spectrum, we see Billy Joe Saunders dealing with his first professional loss. Does he have the hunger to still compete at a high level? He's been a two-weight world champion and just pocketed his biggest payday in a very high-profile fight. Ironically, Billy Joe himself alluded to what he was going to do after the fight prior.
Obviously, I'm not going to win. I'm just going to go there and pick my money up and go home. You know, that's all I'm there for. Grab me cash, go off home, sail off to the sunset, you know? It's one of them.
And I'd understand Billy Joe if he decides to step away from the sport. On the flip side, he did get a lot of flack for ending the Canelo fight the way he did.
How dare you call yourself a champion and you quit like a freaking female dog?
Billy said he don't care if he gotta die. Shit, I don't know what happened. You ain't die. You supposed to die. You said it. Now we ain't saying.
I'm willing to die in there. I'm willing to die, but I will not fight with a broken orbital bone. That's too much for me. Apparently, the broken eye trumps death. That's too much to answer the bell.
I'm very upset. You know, coming from Mexican culture, you don't quit. You know, I feel that's not a good way to go out, especially on the stuff you were talking.
I really thought he quit, and most of those guys that talk a lot, that's normally what happens, you know what I mean?
Yo, Joe Saunders is pussy. He is pussy. You don't go out like that. 8 rounds in front of 73,000 people. You're supposed to get knocked out. You're supposed to die. You're supposed to die because that's what we in there. We gladiators, man. You're not supposed to go in there and quit, man, you know, and he quit tonight.
And that's what Billy Joe Saunders will be remembered for if he hangs him up now. The question is, will he be able to live with that? I think his best days are long gone, which to me were at middleweight anyway, not super middleweight. And given his lifestyle outside of the ring in, well, all of his career, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is engaged to boxing enough to make a serious run at a world title once again. As he stated about a potential Eubank Jr. rematch, quote, "I'm financially secure, so it's a fight that would interest me if the money was right," end quote. That said, Billy Joe Saunders might be a guy who does not want to retire on a loss. So if he does fancy a fight, why not revitalize a good old domestic rivalry that might garner some interest?
I would do to Chris Eubank Jr. what Kawasaki done to his dad. Play with him. Absolute play with him. He's shit. I mean, if I couldn't beat Chris Eubank Jr. in 5 rounds, I swear my son's life, I'd give up boxing. I would be disgusted. My dad would probably beat me with a chain if I didn't beat him in 5 rounds.
We've got a lot of history, and he has been caught doing drugs, which I can't condone. So, you know, I look at that and I kind of think, well, does he deserve it? At the end of the day, the rivalry that we have, it's tough not to want that fight. So that's definitely something that I will be open to moving forward.
I would fight him tomorrow. I'd fight him on the July show if he wanted it. That's how confident I'm beating him. He couldn't tie my boots up. He's rubbish.
You know, if he ever grows a pair and wants to get back in the ring, you know, we're here. So we'll see what happens.
What do you make of Chris Eubank Jr.'s statements of Billy Joe Saunders quitting in the Canelo fight? And would you welcome a Saunders Eubank Jr. rematch? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already, do not forget to subscribe, give a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. If you've done that already, you're amazing. We already know that. You are the true undisputed world champion. Till next time, Ringsiders, this is your host, Boxing's Objective Observer, with Ringside Stories. Thanks for watching, and have a legendary day.